It is SEC football and beyond. I am Chris Landry along with Neil McCready. And yeah, we have been doing this. We've been on the football show. It's why we got beyond. We're going to wrap up the college basketball season. And what a weekend it was off the heels of what I thought was a absolutely great game on Saturday. One of the best that I've seen in a long time. UCLA Gonzaga. We had a great performance, but certainly not a drama-filled game. Neil, we talked about it on Friday, and we looked at it, and the Baylor Bears got to give them a lot of credit. What a performance! Someone who didn't watch them 20 games of theirs this year. Just so impressed with watching them in the tournament. The length, their ability to defend and to be able to reverse and go to the boards. They just didn't miss. Just very, very impressive. You just got to hand it to them. I know it's tough loss for Gonzaga.
Yeah, you got to give Baylor a ton of credit, first and foremost. They were right there at the beginning of the year with Gonzaga. And it's interesting because they've put that team together from a recruiting rankings standpoint. They don't have any big 5-star recruits now. That's a little misleading because I've seen some people do this. Well, they're, anybody, if Baylor can do it, anyone can do it. Well, now keep in mind, their starting lineup had 2 top 100 kids in it. So they are recruiting very talented players. They had a handful of transfers. They have a couple of Louisiana kids. They've got a Georgia kid. They kind of built a base of a team, filled in where it needed. Drew has been there. Scott Drew's been there for 18 years.
Man, that didn't seem like he was there that long. Gosh, seemed like he went there yesterday.
So, there's a lot of continuity in their program. They have a definite personality. They play tenacious defense. And then, this year they were able to score in a number of different ways. They were able to score in their backcourt. Davion Mitchell is a very talented player. They were able to crash the boards. You go back and look at some of their games in the tournament. And I said this when it happened. I remember saying it out loud because obviously, we've got some Arkansas ties in our house now. So we were watching that game. And Arkansas played really well in that Sweet 16 game, or Elite 8 game, I should say, against Baylor. Arkansas played one of its better games of the year, cut it to 4 points in the second half. And it wasn't enough. They simply couldn't stop Baylor because Baylor could score in so many different ways. And then Baylor goes into the Final Four, and they just maul Houston, a really good Houston team. Just maul them. And then you watch Gonzaga and UCLA on Saturday night, the game that you referenced, which was an absolute classic of a game. It was the reason that people like us like sports. It was drama. It was back and forth. And, UCLA doesn't really fit the role of Cinderella. I mean, it's UCLA, for God's sake. But, everyone said, well, UCLA can't do this. And here they are. They're about to do it. This team that Mick Cronin, who's one of the more underrated coaches in all of sports, at team building. He has this team that has taken this trajectory all season straight up. And UCLA gave Gonzaga all it could handle. And it was headed for double overtime. And Jalen Suggs, who is a remarkable story in and of himself. I mean, he's speaking of football, was a guy with multiple Power 5 quarterback offers to go play football, who wanted to play basketball, actually wanted to be recruited by Gonzaga, had people reach out to Gonzaga, hey, he's really interested. And Mark Few's answer was, look, if he's just looking for the social media offer, I'm not really in the mood. No. He wants to be recruited by you guys. He likes you guys. You have a real shot. And Mark Few ended up doing a fantastic recruiting job and landed Jalen Suggs. And Jalen Suggs fits on this team so well. And he makes this running 40-footer off the backboard that is just the ultimate dagger for UCLA. I mean, just the punch that drops you to your knees in that moment. And I didn't think last night, as crazy as it sounds, it's funny, there was a parallel that was drawn to it right away, and you saw it. You remember, Chris, the Christian Laettner shot?
Yep.
Yep. That was in a national semifinal. It was in a national. It was actually
a regional final. Yep.
Yeah, and Duke had a hard time bouncing back from that. They struggled that year to get it going in the tournament, in the Final Four. They won because they were just better than everyone else. But if you remember their national championship game, which was against Kansas that year, Christian Laettner in the first half of that game was just awful, to the point that, I mean, he was getting yelled at on the bench by his teammates. And I thought last night you saw in the early portion of that game, Gonzaga just had a hard time answering the bell. And Baylor did not. Baylor came out looking for knockout punches right out of the gate and basically got it. They cut it to 10 at the half, and I thought they've got a shot here, but you got to get it within 5-6 points right away. And when they couldn't, it was over. And there wasn't a lot of drama, but, you know, I said this with football, and this is a really long-winded answer. I apologize. But I'll say it with basketball too. There is something to be said for, a year ago, people were saying, "Oh, you couldn't do it. There's no way you can't do a college basketball tournament. There's no way to do it." Well, they did it. They did it. I thought yesterday was a great day for sports, Chris, because the college basketball season finished. They played the tournament with just one canceled game. Just the one game, the one first-round game got canceled. And there was also a Major League Baseball game played yesterday in Arlington, Texas, with about 40,000 people in the stands. And for the people that are like, well, this, you know, there's a societal debate we're having right now about, you know, can we ever move on? The answer is yes. We can absolutely move on. It's becoming more and more obvious that yes, we can move on. And so congratulations to college basketball yesterday. They finished a season that a lot of people said there's just no way. It won't work. If you play the conference tournaments, you won't be able to play the real tournament. Well, we did. We played the conference tournaments, played the real tournament, crowned a champion, a worthy champion. Congratulations to Baylor. Next.
Well, and, you know, the story has been, well, Gonzaga's unbeaten season. And let's remind folks that this Baylor team was 17-0. They got hit with COVID. Mm-hmm. We were going to see this Baylor-Gonzaga game in the regular season. It got canceled due to COVID. And then Baylor ended up losing 2 games. And you wonder if they didn't get hit with COVID. Well, I was about to say, you know, people, you know, the 2 unbeaten teams, it would have been 2 unbeaten, because if they'd have played this game, who knows? Maybe it would have been Baylor that would have been unbeaten in this game. We'll never know that, and it's really not relevant at this point, other than, you know, a couple of things. Just Baylor came out from the start, and they were hitting everything, particularly from the 3 was just unbelievable. And Gonzaga did miss some shots. And I did think at halftime they really got the momentum changed, and I thought this is where their run is, just like you mentioned. But Butler hit 2 big shots, and it was like, it's it. It's like you just felt like, at that point, I did anyway, that this is not going to be overcome. And certainly any time I thought, you know, Gonzaga had too many. Look, when you're down that much, you can't have empty possessions, missed shots, couple of turnovers. They had chances there, and Baylor cooled off a little relative to, and Gonzaga couldn't take advantage of it. Just, it wasn't their night. It was Baylor's night, and you know, we can talk about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you know, there was a lot of speculation that you might have that, you know, that the emotional, you know, you almost lay it out there. You almost are emotionally spent after you're winning Saturday. I don't know if that had a lot of effect, a little effect. I don't know. But the reality is, Baylor just showed up in a way that Gonzaga just could not match. And I think, when you get down, you press a little bit. I thought they did. And, but, there were times I thought it looked like there were openings for them to work it back, but Baylor would have none of it. Just really impressed. I can't say how amazing it is. And it's when I think back over the years, I can remember Don Munson being the head coach at Gonzaga. And I remember the school was in such bad shape, just financially, the school. And I remember Don Munson leaving to go to Minnesota because, you had to. And to think where this program is, where, what Mark Few has done and built a program to where it's made now 2 national championship games. And then Scott Drew, his dad, Homer, who we saw last night, if you watch it, his dad was on the first coaching staff of Dale Brown at LSU.
Is that right?
Yep. The 1972, 1 year. So Homer was there with Dale for a year. And of course, Scott and Bryce and, the whole great story, the Valpo story. You go through the Dave Bliss, which, we can talk about. I mean, that is up there. And with the Baylor rape scandal with Art Browse, Jerry Sandusky, the whole Dave Bliss, let's make it seem like, this was somebody that was killed that they tried to, what a disaster. I mean, that was every bit as bad in an era where you didn't have the social media impact quite like the Art Browse situations. How low could you go? Baylor's never done anything in basketball. I mean, in 48 they were there, and but it just was nothing. I mean, to make a tournament was unthought of. And Dave Bliss, Bobby Knight disciple, and was good, and it was just a disaster there. What Scott Drew has done has just been phenomenal. And you know what? Credit, and it's no one has the patience. It just seems like it wasn't that long ago that he was there, but time is flying for me now as I'm getting older.
I'm with you.
It just seems like he was maybe there 8 years, and it just doesn't feel like he's been there that long. The patience, a program that, okay, the expectation level is, okay, we're not expected to go to the Final Four, but to build something, to have the time to do it. You go back in history, how long, you don't realize how long it took before John Wooden actually won his first title. You think today he would have never made it because it took him so long and then became dominant. And then just the fact that just hard to believe that's only the second national championship for the state of Texas. Texas Western being the other in 1966. You think that, and of course, Houston forever and a day will look at 3 straight Final Fours and coming up short, particularly most notably in 83. But just number 1 versus number 2, 2 best teams. We talked about that Friday, that kind of like to see the matchup. I would have liked to have seen a closer game. I knew we weren't going to see Saturday night, and a word about that. That is what sports is all about. You sit there and watch it. That's why you watch it. You never know what you're going to see, and it's so rare that you have that type of game where UCLA wouldn't go away. They wouldn't stop fighting. It was just, it just had everything. And it did remind me a lot. UCLA reminded me of Kentucky and Rick Pitino in that game in 92 against Duke, where they wouldn't go away. They wouldn't go away. You think and they come back, and then hit the big shot late, and then you had the Christian late. It's different, but similar in that, great follow-up shot. You tie it, and then Gonzaga comes back and wins it. I agree. It was a great way to finish it. There was no way we were going to have a final that was going to match the semifinal game. Yet, it was I agree with you. I just credit to everybody involved. We got the tournament in. The women got their tournament in. So it's good to see, and excited to get back in some sense of normalcy. I know in hockey, the Vancouver Canucks had an issue with a COVID outbreak, and I know you got stuff going on still, but boy, it's just good to maybe we can get a little bit more of that to where we can get it done. We'll figure out a way to get it done. But it was a great year, and then of course other news that came out as we talked about as well was we thought North Carolina staying in their home family.
It's what they do. That's what they do. It's amazing, and credit to them. I mean, in some ways, they knew they could go out and conduct a national search, but Hubert Davis was there, and that's who Roy Williams recommended, and that's what they do at North Carolina. They promote from within, and hey, you are who you are, and so we'll see how that works. But and Hubert Davis left a ESPN gig to join Roy Williams' staff 9 years ago, and
God, that's hard to believe. That is 9 years ago, because I thought he was there, and I thought it was like 3 years ago. Because I kind of catch him and I see LaFonso Ellis on there now. I don't watch it a lot. I know Billis has been there. Seth Greenberg's now been there a while, but yeah, I thought it felt like 3 years ago that Hubert Davis was there and left to go to Carolina.
Yeah, crazy. So let me ask you about this. Here's a story that's out, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on it because I suspect you'll be you are not aware of it. I was not aware of it until it just popped up on my alert feed. This is from Yahoo this morning, USA Today. Kenny Jacoby wrote it. It's dateline Tuesday, April the 6th, which is today, 7:35 a.m. Top LSU officials conspired to cover up football coach Les Miles' sexual harassment, then engaged in years-long retaliation against the employee who reported it. The employee alleged in a series of federal and state lawsuits expected to be filed this week. A name, if you've been listening to this show, you've heard it, Sharon Lewis, LSU's Associate Athletics Director of Football Recruiting, named several senior officials who she claims tormented her, discriminated based on sex and race, underpaid her, and contributed to LSU's systemic failure to protect students and hold perpetrators accountable for gendered violence and harassment. Again, I'm reading from USA Today and Yahoo. Attorneys for Lewis said they plan to file a federal Title IX lawsuit, a state whistleblower lawsuit, an equal employment opportunity grievance, and a civil lawsuit under the federal RICO statute, which is used to dismantle organized crime rings. Defendants in the lawsuit include Executive Deputy Athletic Director Verge Osbury and Senior Associate Athletic Director Miriam Seeger, the only two LSU officials disciplined last month in connection with the school's years-long widespread mishandling of sexual misconduct allegations. Then I think the rest of the story, Chris, is just sort of filling in gaps that lead to this. It's a story that just won't go away down there in Baton Rouge.
No, I just say shoes drop. You only have 2 feet, so it's not shoes dropping. It's like leaves drop. I mean, it's just they're coming. So what's going through my mind is I don't know. I know who Sharon is. I don't know her.
Right.
I think, as far as I know, she's still working there. When you're putting together, you usually don't survive when you sue people in your universe. This is like really interesting. This is not a former, and this is somebody that, at least as far as I know, is still working there. Sharon still works there.
So and again, I'm hitting you with this for the first time as I'm reading it really for the first time. And we're not going to stay on this because both of us would.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I'm just it's an interesting topic because I think people look at this deal at LSU and people are like, why is it taking so long? And this is one of the reminders that I tell people, because the legal system operates at crawl, and a lot of times the NCAA can't do anything, even if it wants to. Can't do anything until the legal system has sort of played its way out. This says, and I'm quoting from this article, in an exclusive interview with USA Today, Lewis described a pattern of abusive treatment and retaliation by Miles, Osbury, Seeger, compliance director Bo Bonson, and other athletics officials. The retaliation, she said, continues to this day. It's a quote. Lewis, the first Black woman football recruiting director in the SEC, said she was denied pay raises and promotion, ridiculed in front of her coworkers, and told to find another job when she complained. She suffered a mental breakdown, she said. In addition to Ausberry, Seeger, and Bonson, other defendants include current and former members of the LSU Board of Supervisors, the law firm Taylor Porter, former LSU president F. King Alexander, and athletics director Scott Woodward, who Lewis said has a close personal relationship with Ausberry and refuses to meet directly with her despite being head of her department. Ausberry, Lewis said, called Woodward his, quote, boy, end quote, in a conversation last year during which he said Woodward would not protect her.
This is the drama. Yeah, I don't know. Again,
drama there, yeah, for sure.
What I'm getting at is my understanding she still works there. So this is not a former employee. This is normally what happens is somebody gets fired. They're not there. He or she's not there, and then it's like this is like. Now this is going on over there. I mean, they may run into each other in the elevator today. Is what I'm saying. I don't. This is like, wow. And then of course, we've got the whole situation with Ed Orgeron and talking about Darius Geis, and we don't know. He's supposed to testify, speak Thursday. I've said I don't know that he will. I was told I got something in today. It was something, one reporter thing came a blurb. They've got one local talk show in Baton Rouge, and it's on kind of the LSU affiliate thing, and Ed Orgeron's going to be on, but they're not going to ask him about that.
Is that Marcona's show?
No, it's a morning show, so I don't know whatever the morning show is. So it's like, that's typical. So yeah, I don't know. It is. Folks, I do not know what to say about my alma mater there, other than it's just been a mess. And
yeah, well, and again, I want to reiterate this for anybody who's watching or listening. Chris and I did not discuss this in our pre-show thing because I don't think this was available. I literally saw it as we were talking about basketball, and I thought, I guess I should mention it. But it's unfair of me to ask Chris to comment on something that he's literally hearing for the first time. That there's a lot in here where I will tell you this: it is not an easy read.
It's not surprising because the reports of Sharon Lewis in the Hush report were that she was nervous breakdown, mental breakdown, whatever you call it. I don't mean to minimize it, but whatever it is. And the verbal abuse and all the things that is in there, that's kind of was in the Hush report. What I'm, again, trying to wrap my brain around, and follow me out there, normally when these things happen and if you're working for somebody, you normally file a lawsuit when you're no longer working for them or with them. So what does this do for the working relationship? I mean, I guess she's leaving or she's not leaving. Maybe she left and I hadn't heard about it. I don't know. That is it continues. I don't know what where this is going to go. This is going to be quite quite a follow.
Some of this goes way back, Chris, to 2010. This is stuff that goes. This is why when people are like, well, what's going to happen? I don't. The answer is, and you've said this before, I don't know. I don't know how the NCAA.
I don't know how you uncover this stuff. This is not like you open up the closet. It's like you open up a warehouse. I mean, how long does it take to get through all the stuff in the warehouse? In 2010, I mean, we got to go back to where, we always said, well, Scott Woodward wasn't here for the. Hell, you keep going back far enough. Scott Woodward was here before he left to join Mark Emmett Washington. Maybe he was there for some of this. Good Lord. I mean, you going back 2010. Let me remind myself, everyone else knows this. That'd be 11 years ago. That's
What was LSU on the field in 2010, 2011? Were
Oh,
they winning big at that point?
when was the yeah, they were winning. Yeah, sure. They were winning. I mean, they were you know, close to getting back to that yeah, no, they were having success. Yeah, absolutely. Things were rosy and good and successful, and not any desire to say, well, let's find a reason to get out for. I mean, they were always Les was always the ire of a lot of people in the administration, but no, they hadn't had what was the year that well, the Ole Miss game and the fourth down clocking. I lose track of the years now. I got to go back and think.
That was 2009, right? Yeah, because Ole Miss was good in 08 and 09 and then fell off the map in 10 and 11.
So 9 was you had the
9 was the year in Oxford where the clock at the end.
The clock at the end, and then they had the game. Derek Dooley almost beat them, if you remember, and there was a really a bad call on LSU, got another play, and they got in anyway. It was just there was a lot of that's when people start saying.
Here's what's interesting:
people around the golf course and everybody start talking about Les Miles and the horseshoe up the ass. It's like man, Les is just like that was when you play golf and at a I got to tell you that to play golf at a buddy of mine, God rest his soul, he passed away over a year ago. Hit him. People who play the University Club. We hit the bulkhead, and it bounced up, and it rolled 3 feet from the hole, and that's when people would say, "Man, you've been hanging around with Les. Did you borrow Les's horseshoe and put it in your golf bag?" That was the kind of the theory at the time. Well, Les is pulling out these, going for it on fourth down 8 times in a game, and it was like just and more games that he basically screwed up, but they won. There was a lot of that feeling right about that time, but still they were winning, and people were really full.
We'll move on from this, but this goes back to reporting on this. She very clearly just opens up. She being Lewis opens up and just tells USA Today everything. Because in this story, it says in November 2010, LSU hosted quarterback recruit Zach Mettenberger on an official visit. Miles needed a quarterback, and Mettenberger had just been kicked off the University of Georgia football team after he was accused of groping the breast and buttocks of a student at a bar. Mm-hmm. Mettenberger pleaded guilty to counts of battery that May and was sentenced to a year of probation. In a staff meeting after Mettenberger's visit, I remember this because Ole Miss, Houston Nutt was trying to recruit Zach Mettenberger here. Mm-hmm. In a staff meeting after Mettenberger's visit, Miles complained that LSU's recruiting girls were ugly and that when he was head coach at Oklahoma State University, he interviewed and picked the girls himself. Mm-hmm. Miles didn't realize Lewis was there, she said, until all the coaches looked at her. She said she felt shocked, embarrassed, and isolated. Miles pressured his staff. Again, I'm reading from a USA Today story. Miles pressured his staff to get Lewis to comply, she said. According to Lewis, then running backs coach Frank Wilson, and then director of player personnel Sherman Morris instructed her to hire fewer black girls, or at least lighter-skinned black girls, to, quote, get Coach Miles off my back, end quote. Wilson and Morris met with Lewis's colleagues, she said, and asked them to influence Lewis, quote, to do what Les Miles wanted, end quote. This is the kind of stuff, Chris, that never really gets reported. You hear stuff like this in the rumor mill when you're around programs. This stuff never gets into black and white like this. And when I say black and white, I mean print on the internet. I'm not referring to race. I'm referring to that you never see the quotes printed in a story. You don't see these things like this. It's like I said, it's a hell of a read, and there's a lot of names in there. But for the people that are like, you should blow LSU up, here's the thing. This is 11 years ago, this conduct. I mean, it's you can ask a lot of questions about how this happened, how it was allowed to happen. How did Les Miles survive all of this when these things were getting reported? What it does tell you, the picture it paints is that internally there were a lot of people having a lot of conversations inside that building, inside the buildings at LSU about what do we do?
Well, Bo's still there. I know Bo Bonson. No, Bo's been there since that. Bo Bonson was an administrative assistant for Dale Brown. That's how long he's been there. Bo's wife, Karen, was a golfer and was the golf coach, and she's retired. But Bo's been there forever. I've known Bo forever. Verge is still there, and Miriam's still there. Those are the two that were on suspension. By the way, just how time flies, their suspensions are up, so they're back at work. Sharon is relatively new. Like she got, when a new, 15 years new. But I mean, we're talking Bo was there when I was there. I mean, in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. So, so a lot of it is, well, these people are not there anymore. There's some administrators that are. Verge was there, but Verge wasn't in his position. Well, in 2010 he was, but how far do you want to go back? What does it really mean? What is it? I mean, it sounds bad, but you mentioned it's not maybe the worst thing if you knew what went on behind the scenes in most places. Maybe not the worst thing ever, but boy, it is becoming, you talking about airing your dirty laundry out. I mean, this is like, you don't normally see this stuff. I mean, this is like, hey, the neighbor said, hey, he cheated on me. Come over here and let's have a block party and I'll tell you about what he did, who he slept with. I mean, it's like, good Lord, it's going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to come of it.
There's a lot. What you just said is, often in these things you hear some allegations. You very rarely see someone say, all right, I'm going to talk to the media and I'm going to flesh it all out. But this is,
ooh, man, she is, she is. I mean, normally, and I know I say, well, you can't legally. It's state. I don't know, boy. Legally, sure, she's lawyered up, but that's something it normally doesn't. It doesn't lead to good relationships when you sue people that you work with or work for. It just doesn't usually win well. I don't know how it ends, but it is, like I said, it makes for some tense meetings at the water cooler.
Yeah, I would think this story today is leading to a very awkward day at the LSU athletic offices.
I got a headache. Sam Darnold was traded yesterday.
So let me ask you about this. Sam Darnold goes to Carolina. We've heard all this talk about this offseason about all these quarterbacks that were going to get moved. We thought for a while that Russell Wilson would get moved. He didn't, at least not to this point. We thought for a little while that Deshaun Watson was going to force his way out, and his situation is, as we chronicled the other day, is right now. Another NFL team simply could not trade for Deshaun Watson today. Maybe this all goes away, and three weeks from now you could, but today you couldn't. Sam Darnold was out there. The Jets very clearly are going to go quarterback first round. Feel free, Chris. You know football 1,000 times better than I do. But when I watch Darnold, I watch a guy and I think, in the right system with the right cast around him, I think Darnold could be a good NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. And, the situation with the Jets, and this is a good lesson in modern day NFL and how not to run an organization, in that if you're the Jets, let's go back a few years, you draft Sam Darnold. You like him, but you do such a poor job around him. You don't have any talent around him to the point where you can't even evaluate him, to where now you're in this spot again where you're picking second. And I don't doubt that there's somebody they like, probably Zach Wilson, more than Sam Darnold. But what they like even more than that is the fact that they can start the reset button and get a rookie contract, a rookie quarterback under a rookie contract. And that's what's at stake here. And that's what's happening. And with that, I mean, there has been a lot of talk. I've been thinking an awful lot about, well, the Jets do go quarterback, then Sam Darnold is going to go somewhere. There was some thought before San Francisco made the trade up that would be a landing spot. But doing deals are can be complex. I fully expect Carolina doesn't make this move unless they pick up the 5th-year option. I don't think they, make the trade. I mean, they technically can make the trade, let him play this year, and then, play it out. But I think they're going to pick up the option soon and redo that deal. I think he's talented. I think Joe Brady will do a good job with him. I think they're kind of rebuilding in Carolina, but they clearly needed somebody who can do more for them offensively than Ted Bridgewater is capable of. And now Teddy is a trade candidate for somebody that in a certain role. Don't know. Why not? Let's throw them out there to your Bears. Everybody else is throwing. I mean, it's like,
hey, we've got Andy.
Let's just collect. We'll have like 8 quarterbacks on the Bears, and we'll just figure this crap out later, type thing.
Look,
but
Chris, we've got Andy Dalton. It's all solved. Everything is good now.
It's look. I mean, Teddy and Andy basically are the same guy. I mean, you can just give them the same number. I think that what this says to me is that Carolina, because I was thinking, all right, Carolina quarterback. How are they going to do it? Move up to 4, move in to get one of these guys, and so now I think they're out of the quarterback shopping business. So this is going to be interesting to see. And listen, for people who don't know, it's a 6 this year, and a 2 and a 4 in 2022 is what the Jets get. So the Jets have 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s next year. So my goodness, for the Jets, again, another regime. If Joe Douglas, if they screw this up, okay, so they're going to draft their quarterback, and they've got all sorts of resources this year and next year. If they screw this up, well, then it's just going to be a bigger issue. And they've got to put a team around now. Zach Wilson's got a little bit of a Baker Mayfield personality. I don't know if that's going to play as well in the I know it won't play as well in the New York media as, say, Sam Darnold, who's just a little kind of California cool, let it roll off his back, the criticism and whatnot. Jets have got to fix this around the quarterback that they take, whatever they do. Now, what do the Niners do at 3? Do they go with Mac Jones? Do they like Justin Fields?
Ask you that exact question. I'm looking at a couple of mock drafts just so I can kind of find some things to ask you about. And Mac Jones as the 3rd pick in the draft is popping up quite a bit on some mock drafts. And I like Mac Jones a ton, but man, that feels high.
Yeah, it's high where I have him. But again, quarterback, if you like him, if it turns out to be your quality starter, you don't look back and, say, well, it's too high, it's just, it's risky. And we can go back through a lineage of quarterbacks. I was on a show the other day, and we went through all the quarterbacks that were taken high, and you can look at all of them that were just, nope, bust, didn't, and then few that are. To get the few that are, you take chances. So we'll see in San Francisco. Whoever they take is probably going to have the most early success, that player, because it's a better team around them. But Here's what I think is interesting. So San Francisco, let's say they take a quarterback, and we have quarterback come off the board.
What does Atlanta do at 4 in that?
Well, I think that they're, to me, I would take Penei Sewell there. I think he's one of the top 2 players in this draft, but we'll see. But so with Carolina kind of out of that shopping business, when there's going to be a quarterback now, if you start doing the numbers, that's going to slip. So it's Mac. You got Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. Well, if one of them goes to San Francisco, then that's 2 others that are either somebody's going to surprise like Atlanta and take one, or somebody's going to move up. Would a Denver, would a Detroit, even with Jared Goff, do it? Do they really like a Justin Fields? Do they really like a Trey Lance? I guess what I'm saying, what opens up yesterday, the sidebar of this is a quarterback is going to slip or 2 a little bit. not in the top 5 or 6. So let's watch and see who might maneuver or fall right into the lap of somebody. I mean, if you're Denver, are you sold on Drew Lock, or you're sitting there at 10 and one falls in your lap, or you move up a couple of spots? I think that's quite interesting to see where they go, because I'm assuming now Carolina can go and attack another position. Detroit, yeah, they got Goff. Is he the long-range answer? Do they think he might be? But again, if they've got a really high grade on one of those quarterbacks that they perceive to be gone, it's going to create an interesting dynamic that I think is going to affect the top of the draft. So,
can I take you through a few of these teams and tell me what a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, so I think we can establish at this point that Trevor Lawrence is going 1 to Jacksonville, and I think it's obvious that Zach Wilson's going 2 to the Jets. I think the Jets have choreographed their play. Let's say for kicks that the Niners go Mac Jones here. If you're Atlanta at 4, are you Matt Ryan's 36? He's had a hell of a career, but the end is near. Are you going quarterback this early, or are you trying to trade down a little bit? Are you making one more run with Matt Ryan, or how do you, if you're in that Falcons building, how do you sort of approach that pick?
Well, I think all the signs of what they did with redoing Matt Ryan's contract would indicate that they're going away from the quarterback as their pick.
Okay.
That's what those moves make. Now, look, we don't know what their board says and, how intoxicated they might be with one of those guys. I mean, I don't think they would take Mac Jones. I don't know that they would take Fields or Lance, but I don't know that for certain. I would think that they would take Penei Sewell if they were there. That would be what I would do if I were them. It is certainly a valid question, because if you have the quarterback graded really highly, then you got to look at it. Now, I think that the way they structured the deal with Matt Ryan, it's going to look. I mean, there's no doubt. There's the theory that you're picking this high, and if you got a quarterback that you like, but I think that while everyone is throwing bouquets at all these quarterbacks, there's some inherent risks with these guys too. But you're looking at Atlanta, Cincinnati at 4, 5, and then 6 Miami. You're looking at 3 teams that have got their quarterback. At least Miami is with Tua. That's where they're going. I think that's going to be real intriguing and where it gets interesting. And my point is, if those teams stay and don't trade, I would assume that it's not going to be quarterback. So that means you've got 2 of those guys I mentioned. Let's say 2 between Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields. 2 of them are dropping, or somebody's moving up as a result of it and say, you know what, I really like Justin Fields. I really like Trey Lance. I thought we've got a chance to go and get him. So is that a Denver move? Is that what about Philly? So Philly moved back. There was a lot of talk that, they really like Zach Wilson, and they probably won't. But, I think, Minnesota, is it too far to move back there? I think that's where the intrigue is. But no, I think Atlanta, if it were me, I'd take Sewell. I don't think they're taking quarterback. And I think with Cincinnati, I think if Sewell's there, they would take him. And if not, I think it probably is a weapon, maybe like a Jamar Chase I think they're going to try to help out Joe Burrow in one way or the other.
So if you're Cincinnati here, you're sitting at 5. They took Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going quarterback.
Correct.
They potentially sort of have the pick of the draft, don't they? I mean, potentially they're going to get to take whoever is the top player on their board. I mean, whether that's Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase or I don't know, Patrick Surtain or Penei Sewell. There's a lot of people that would be available for them right there. If you're Cincy, do you even play with the idea of trading down a little bit with one of these quarterback hungry teams?
I think that if Sewell's there, I think they take him. I think Sewell or Chase is their guy. I think they stay. Cincinnati historically doesn't trade a lot. They did ironically trade up with Carolina the year they went up and got Kajana Carter, number 1. But they normally don't. But that is the sweet spot. Atlanta's taken a lot of calls at 4. And so, the calls are for the quarterback. So who they're coming from, but I think that's where you'd want to go. I'd call Atlanta first because that's where you absolutely need to be because, I think that you've got to be comfortable with all the quarterbacks or who could be there, and you don't know who's going to be there. That's why San Francisco made the move. San Francisco likes 3 quarterbacks in this draft. I believe they like Trevor Lawrence, of course. I think they like Zach Wilson, and they like a third guy. I don't know which one that is, but they're guaranteed to get the third guy, whoever that is. So others have got to be careful that their guy is there. So I would think that draft day is still open for potential trade for somebody moving up for a QB.
Miami's they're not going quarterback, I wouldn't think.
I don't think
they're probably looking at Pitts, Chase, that type of a player on offense as a weapon.
Yeah, Pitts, Chase, Waddle, whoever they want as a weapon for Tua. Now I would consider if I were them, if Sewell were to slip, I'd jump on that. And I just think Penei Sewell's an elite tackle, but I don't think he'll be there. So I think it's probably a receiver weapon there.
That's what's interesting here is so we talk about Carolina. This, I, believe it or not, I had a path I was trying to follow here, and you're really good at this. And sure enough, here we are. If you're Carolina, you made this deal yesterday. You gave up some picks, but you didn't give up a 1. You go out and you get Darnold, who I think can be a good quarterback if you surround him with good talent. And here you are, Carolina, with the 8th pick in the draft, and it's certainly possible that Penei Sewell could be available for you there, that Rashawn Slater could be available for you there, that you could go add a very good offensive tackle to protect Sam Darnold for the next 3 years, where if you surround him with the right talent, this could end up being kind of a steal of a trade for the Panthers, even though it's a trade that makes sense for the Jets because of all the clock reset that you've talked about. And you're going to walk away with Zach Wilson, who a lot of people are starting to think is maybe the highest upside quarterback in this draft. I'll let you comment on that. I simply don't know enough football to know it. I'm just relaying what people say to me. But if you're Carolina, this could end up being a really commonsensical approach to this that allows you to compete in the NFC South.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for Sam Darnold. I think it's a good move for Carolina. And, the Jets were not – they're going to take the quarterback. They weren't in a real leverage position, which is why they were not able to get any more for him. And I think getting a 2 next year certainly helps them kind of, as I said, give them a 2 2s and 2 1s next year. No, yeah, Carolina is in a position to get definitely a top 5 player on their board, if not a top 3 player on their board at number 8, because if you're out of the quarterback shopping business, it opens up to a better player, and I think that's going to bring. And there's some really good ones. It could be a weapon. Maybe Pitts slips. Maybe Chase. Slips. I doubt it. Don't think Sewell will. But you're dealing with a really good receiver. And I think they'll probably go for a weapon there on offense. But I think there'll be great value and at a need spot for them. So there's no question that I thought that they did a good job, and I credit them. Really, really good job, and I think Matt and the crew there is doing a really good job of figuring this out. I think Sam has got a lot of talent, and I'm curious to see what he can do with better coaching and certainly a more stable situation. They're rebuilding, but they've got a little bit more stability than the Jets have. That's been the biggest problem.
Yeah, to me, the draft is just such a fascinating topic because teams can overthink it. They do overthink it. They end up making mistakes. That a wild card happens early in the draft, and it forces teams to scramble. And
which why mock drafts are, when I do it, people say, "Well, am I doing mock drafts?" Doing a mock draft is all the years working in the league and even doing consulting work. It's not about, well, who do you think Atlanta is going to take? It's all right at 10. If you're picking at 10, who's going to be there? And what do you do if these cluster of players are there? And what do you do if these cluster of players are there? So one of the things about mock drafts is, there's a move at 3 or 4 that 4, let's say, that's a little bit off course, well, that changes 5, that changes 6. So everything is a domino effect. So all the looking back is just kind of, I don't want to say meaningless because I know it's fun. It's kind of the fantasy football version
Sure.
of the NFL draft. But what's important, and I try to stress this, and cheap plug here, I got the horizontal board up and the position boards are coming up now. The quarterbacks, the running backs are up. You'll see where the separation is. It's not about a top 10, a top 5. It might be a top 2, and then there's a break. It might be, players 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are in the same tier. Important to understand because that's how a real draft board looks like. And teams may have them in different order, but they have clusters. And that the board dictates to you whether you'd want to move up, whether you want to move down, where you're going to get good value. I think the biggest thing I get is, people get frustrated. I'll get this a lot, Neil, is people will, they're a fan of the Bears, and they'll say, Chris, I can't believe it. Your 16th best guy on your board was there, and they took a guy that was ranked 32nd because they all had the same grade. Look at it. They look at the ranking 16 and 32 and don't realize they're all with the same grade. Really important to understand. Whereas, sometimes the difference between 3 and 4 is significant. Sometimes the difference between 16 and 32 is not much difference, if at all, because they're in the same grade tier. And that's how you set up a draft board properly. But it all comes down to evaluating correctly and understand that teams look at players differently. And I put a board together for how good a play. If a guy's a good zone corner, I'm going to grade him as a zone corner. He's not a fit for a team that plays more man. He's not a fit. But he's really good, and he deserves to be at a 6-4 grade for a zone team, not a man team. If it's a man blocking, a downhill blocking offensive lineman or a zone blocking offense, they're going to be like completely different. So I like to say it's like going on a car lot. If you want a pickup, you're not interested in the minivan. It may be their best deal on the lot. It may be it's not what you want. And so understanding that they both have the same value, but they're not what you want, that really factors into the draft process. That's what we try to do at Landry Football to kind of give you the feel for it and understand that no, these are not bad picks in a lot of cases. It's they see it, but everybody grades it on the fantasy draft. Hey, here's my best this, and it's 16, the guy at 16 on a board, and 32, you take 32. It's not the way it works.
Well, I'll get to a couple of questions that are in the thread in a second. We're brought to you by Blue Sky. Blue Sky believes in being fast, fresh, and friendly. Throughout the thoughtful layout and cleanliness of their stores, Blue Sky hopes to provide customers with a fast and easy buying experience. From services to products, Blue Sky plans to keep things fresh and always provide the freshest flavors of the brand name products and the best services available. You can learn more about Blue Sky by going to one of their 48 store locations across the Southeast. You won't regret it. Great customer service, great shopping experience, always clean, always neat at Blue Sky. We are also brought to you by Alpha Specialties. Alpha Specialties is located at 1670 Highway 80 in Pearl, Mississippi. They are your trailer-specific professional. If you want to haul it, they can call it. Alpha's the premium trailer dealership in Mississippi. They've got Load Trail. It's the premium brand trailer, the highest quality utility, equipment, dump, and gooseneck trailers being built today. Fully primed and powder-coated, those Load trailers come with an industry-leading 3-year warranty and 2 years of roadside assistance. They also have Hallmark cargo trailers, one of the most quality cargo trailers on the market, perfect for hauling goods to markets and shows, ATVs to deer camp, hauling race cars and more. They can even work with third parties to have game day trailers and concession trailers built just for you. Listeners can get 10% off a yearly trailer service and inspection at Alpha's full service shop. They repair all types of trailers, concession, horse, utility, enclosed, gooseneck, RV, and more. So give them a call at 601 932-9798, or check them out at alphaofms.com. Make sure you tell them that you heard about Alpha on the MPW Digital Network of Podcasts, which includes Landry Football and Beyond. All right, Chris, let's see. We had some questions as we get the last few minutes. Where did I miss it? Oh, Spartan Barton wants to know your top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC in 2021.
Let me think on that one. Let me get through. Let me think about that. Let me just kind of go through. There's a lot of unknown there.
Tons.
Great question.
You got the kid of Georgia, JT Daniels.
Yeah, JT Daniels is the first guy that comes to mind. It's just a lot of unknown with a lot of new starters. I really wouldn't have I hate to not avoid. I wouldn't have it. I'm not going to rate somebody that hadn't done it yet. It's a great question. There's not a really good answer. I would say JT is a guy that I'm comfortable with, but he hadn't played a ton either, but enough to more than most.
Yeah, the 2 guys that come to mind are JT Daniels and Matt Corral, 2 guys that have played a lot of football in the league, and then pretty much everywhere else you've got some question marks.
New guy at Florida, not much at Tennessee, working through some things at Kentucky, and a lot of new. There's really not a top 5. I mean, the top 5 will evolve as the play plays out, but really don't have one, to be honest with you.
G210 Reb wants to know about some of the hype supposedly pushing Elijah Moore up the board. We covered him last week a little bit. You've got him as a second round grade. There's a handful of mocks that are out there that have him at the bottom of the first round.
Yeah, well, it's really not about hype. It's about look at where the top receivers are. So I've got Chase and Smith and Waddle. There's a good chance all 3 of those guys are off the board by 15, pick 15 or 16. The next group are all high second round value. Elijah Moore, Terrence Marshall, Kadarius Toney. Well, just do the pure numbers. I've got 24 first round grades overall. That's high because, again, I've got it for everybody. Most teams are going to have 18 to 22 tops. So just do the math. I mean, Elijah Moore it's going to be awfully hard for somebody that wants a receiver, likes a receiver, to, if these receivers the top 3 go off the board at 15 or 16, it's going to be awfully hard for somebody to wait to the top of the second. I think they're going to jump on Elijah and maybe even Terrence Marshall and Kadarius Toney. All those guys are in play for late first round. The high second round guys, all the 6'4" graded guys on the board, all of them are candidates to be late first rounders. You only got 8 of them that are going to get in there, 8 or 10, but they're all candidates. And I think when you look at draft strategy, draft management, there's going to be a quick run on receivers. Marshall, Moore, and Toney are in that next cluster that will probably go in the first round. Doesn't mean that they're first round grade, but they're going to go in the first round because you're going to have some second round graded guy go in the first round. Hope that makes sense. That's just kind of the way I see it. So I do think there's a really good chance that Elijah Moore goes somewhere in the first round, mid to late first round. And I think it's going to be tied to where the top 3 go. How quick.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to run upstairs. I had to wake my daughter up. I was being bombarded with text of, you have to wake her up. She's got something she's got to do at 10. We have also a question. We didn't touch on this today, and frankly, it's a story that I'm still not particularly comfortable with. The question is from Daniel Cotto: should Deshaun Watson take a year off and then make a comeback, or will he be blacklisted for good from the NFL? I don't think, and I'll let you answer this with as much length as you feel like. I don't think we're there yet where you could even talk about what this does or doesn't mean for him. I mean, obviously the numbers are somewhat staggering, 22 different allegations. But there is still, at least in my mind, there has to be a certain degree of innocence until proven guilt. And if you're the Texans or any other team, I don't know that you can just abandon Deshaun Watson today. You've got questions to ask, and you've got to study what this would mean for his value. Can you, if this is proven to be true, can you make him the face of your franchise in today's environment? I don't know the answer to that. What it would mean for his NFL future, I don't know the answer for that either. I mean, we obviously we talk a lot about quarterbacks, and it's a quarterback league. We were talking about the Panthers a minute ago, Chris, with all the things that all the machinations the Panthers have done for a quarterback, about what the Jets are doing in terms of trying to find a quarterback, and it's all about finding a quarterback. And Watson is clearly a high level NFL quarterback, talking about his play. But if this is going on off the field, I don't. It's a hell of a good question. Is it time for people to talk about him taking a year off? I think that's premature. Is him being blacklisted for good? That's really premature, in my opinion. But it's certainly a conversation that if I'm wondering just how much inside the Texans' offices they're talking about here 3 weeks before the draft. What are we doing at quarterback? What is our situation with Deshaun Watson? What is our future at that position? What should we be thinking about right now?
Yeah, I think the key word you said it's all premature. We don't know what's going to happen. And no, he shouldn't take a year off. He may be forced to take a year off. We don't know where this is legally going to go. Let me say this. We need to see. I do believe that his lawyer is having a press conference either today or tomorrow to address certain things. We had the first criminal. There was like up to 22, and there's a first criminal filing. All of them have been civil. He's not going to get blacklisted in the league. If there's any way he is that good that he will be signed somewhere down the road, unless it's just really bad things we don't, it's maybe bad luck, time, whatever. We're going to have to let this play out. I can't answer blacklisted, no. But he just may not be able to at some point, but at this point, but at some point, he's too good a player. I think people are going to want him. This is not, this is not going to be like a Colin Kaepernick situation. This guy is too good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if things come out that are so bad that you can't, I don't know how to answer that. It's all premature, and let that play out legally, because I don't know what happened on any of these situations. I'm suspicious a little bit that it was all civil suits and no criminal ones. Now is there anything to it? What is it? If it's cleared up and you can't prove it and whatever, then I expect them to be back in the league. But I don't. I'm basing it on no real knowledge base of what really happened and what's the legal proceedings. But I think if there's any way he can get back in the league, people are absolutely interested, because he is worth the trouble. He is worth the negativity if he is available to somebody at some point down the road. So let's just let it play out and see.
It's a great answer. I completely agree. It's one of those deals, as we sit here on April the 6th, where the answer is, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know frustrates people as an answer, but sometimes I don't know is the answer.
It's an easy football answer. The football answer is you got to wait and see. I'm not like a lot of these things. I don't want to run from it. I just don't have a knowledge of legal stuff. And I'm to the point where you listen to different people and you hear different things. I don't know enough to know what to believe. And that's in the real world stuff. And as it affects football, there's no question. But I think we need to see it. I think that, if you're dealing, people say, well, the Ray Rice situation, that was on video, and Ray Rice was a more replaceable player. I think Deshaun Watson's one of the elite players in the league. And if you would ask me, I would say it would take something horrendous and it could be, I'm not saying it's not, it would take something horrendous for him to not be back playing football. I'd be very surprised if at some point he's not. But again, that's with the benefit of thinking that maybe this is not as bad as it appears, but who knows? Maybe it is. I don't know what anybody else thought as when you first thought about like a guy like a Bill Cosby. You thought, well, that's nothing to that. That's somebody trying to get money, and then look what happened there. I mean, so what if it's if it's something like that? Well, no, I mean that's a whole kettle of fish. I don't want to go down there yet. I'd rather think and hope that it's not as bad. It's been talked about, and if it's proven to be, we'll deal with it then.
And we'll get another chance to deal with it on Friday. We'll get back together with you guys on Friday morning, 9:00, and see what's happening in the world of sports. We'll talk about some spring football. I actually went to a football practice, Chris, on Saturday. It was my first time to see live football with my own two eyes in about 18 months. So
there you go.
We can talk about some spring football and some other topics next time we get together on SEC Football and Beyond. Thanks to everybody in the stream for being a part of the show. And for Chris, I'm Neil. Talk to you Friday.